Hi. Following very positive reactions from my vinyl collection, I've been asked to show maybe some of my CD collection to you guys. Now, having followed some advice from other people who also do this regularly on YouTube, um, I'm going to cut my CD collection into parts, and to avoid sort of talking to myself for 30 minutes onwards, I'm just going to fly through a bunch of CDs and maybe talk a little bit about them. And eventually, split this up into parts and maybe make a little series out of it. Anyway, so first off, we have Time by Winter Sun. This is the special edition digibook CD DVD version with a little book inside, and the bonus DVD. I got this from a little secondhand store over here called CEX, and this same version was over $20 in in a HMV store in the same town. I picked this up for $2. This is a really good album, actually. I'm really happy with it. Although, considering how long it took for this to come out, I don't really think it was worth the wait for 5 tracks. But it's still very good, and I really hope Time 2 happens soon. Because I can't really afford to wait another 10 years for more Winter Sun. Alright, next we have a band that I got into fairly recently, actually. I had never heard of them up until about a month ago. And these guys are from Denmark, and they're not particularly big outside of Denmark, I've noticed, because I had no idea who these guys were. They're very much in the vein of sort of Pearl Jam and Bush, sort of a very early 90s grunge alternative music, and this is the repress of their debut album. This is Dizzy Miss Lizzy with the self-titled album. It's a fantastic album. It's actually one of my favorite albums that I own now in my entire collection. I really like this. Check out Silver Flame, because that is probably my favorite song at the moment. It's in a little carton digipack cover thing. Not my favorite kind of packaging, but I'll deal with it. Okay, next up, there's an album that I also have on vinyl, but this is the special edition. I did mention in my vinyl video that I own this, and it's a very good album with very good pagan, Irish pagan black metal. This is Imrama by Primordial this is the 2012 reissue, special edition digipack with expanded artwork, and it's CD DVD double disc. And the cool thing about this package is it has the Imrama album. It also has their demo tape, and the DVD includes Live in Cork City, Ireland, February 1994, which, according to the booklet, was their first show outside of Dublin, and it was apparently their fourth or fifth show ever. So it's pretty cool that they included that in the package, and this is an incredible album. I really do enjoy it. And if you're not really familiar with the sort of black metal, the darker side of Primordial, now they're a bit more sort of power metal, but this is fantastic. I love it so much. Next, we've got an album I got for Christmas last year. I've been struggling to find this for quite some time, actually, and this was almost a blind buy. I was around at my friend's house on Halloween one time, and he put a track from this album on, and I fell in love with it instantly. This is Wormwood by Marduk. It's not necessarily straight up black. It's actually got some more more of an industrial feel to it, but you should check out Chorus of Cracking Necks. This is one of my favorite Marduk albums. Again, it's hers in a little digipack. We got the both members and the booklet inside here. Next up, we have something I bought recently. Actually, I bought this off Amazon on a whim. It was another blind buy. Foundations of Burden by Paul Bearer. This is great American funeral doom. Very melodic, actually, very sort of catchy, but again, it's in the sort of funeral doom vein. I mean, it's not really something you could put on and have as background noise, because it really requires quite a bit of attention to detail. And I actually really like the color of this of the packaging. And another album that I bought next, I actually bought alongside this, the Paul Bearer album. It's Misery Wizard by Pilgrim, and it's fucking amazing. This is so good. The songs are a little bit long. It's a bit difficult. It's not. It's less kind of accessible than a lot of Doom, but I find that this is just the Doom with the fantasy theme, and it's the voice, the vocals are just amazing. I didn't expect them, and I listened to the title track Misery Wizard. I stumbled upon it on a whim, and just wow. Plus, this artwork is super cool. Some weird like oil painting thing, which is pretty damn cool, I think. I'm probably going to get a lot of shit for these next few albums by all the elitists that are like, it's not black metal. Okay, but I love this band, certainly up until around the 2000 era. I really do like this band. These are another I picked up fairly cheap, but they were definitely worth, and they will play really well. This is, I have the From the Cradle to Enslave EP by Cradle of Filth from '99, I believe. It's fairly bog standard digipack packaging, no frills, nothing too exciting. There's not really much of a booklet in it. There's a picture of them all being all evil and stuff. On the back, the track listing. I think this is actually the special edition, because I'm not sure if the regular edition has the Funeral in Carpathia Be Quick or Be Dead remix, but that is on this. I think this is pretty cool. This is one of two Cradle of Filth EPs that I own. I'm actually looking to get the Vampire Dark Fairy Tales in Palestine EP, so then I can kind of have all of them up to a point. This is another Cradle of Filth EP, Bittersweets to Succubi. Succubi, sorry, I can't speak today. You have to forgive me, I kind of just woke up. I really like this album. This has one of the first Cradle of Filth tracks I ever heard, which was Scorched Earth Erotica, which was only released on here, and it was part of the soundtrack for Cradle of Fear, which is the very bad horror movie that Danny Filth starred in. This has re-recordings of Summer Dying Fast and The Principle of Evil Made Flesh from their debut, and I don't know, I really like it. I've somewhat of a soft spot for Cradle of Filth. I mean, this is more expanded packaging. There's a bit more to it than From the Cradle to Enslave. We have a full booklet with all the lyrics and all kinds of pictures of it in and stuff. But no, I do like Cradle. I do. I think they get a lot of shit, purely because of the direction they've taken lately with their later albums. But I think around the time Cradle came out, there wasn't a lot of black metal in the UK. There was maybe 2 or 3 bands, and these guys, they did really good at what they set out to achieve, and they're arguably the most popular UK black metal band at the moment. Well, certainly they used to be. Anyway, my next album is kind of taking a little break from the black metal, which we will return to momentarily, don't worry. But this is another recent acquisition, and The Circus Leaves Town by Caius. This was their final album, I believe. The final album before they disbanded and Josh Homme moved on to Queens of the Stone Age. This is with a new lineup in the form of Alfredo Hernandez on drums, replacing Brant Bjork, and Scott Reeder, who played bass on. I'm not sure if he played bass on Welcome to Sky Valley. That could have been Nick Oliveri, but you know, don't like quote me on it. I'm sure you'll be able to tell me differently if that's the case. But this is a really good album. I really enjoy it. I'm sad that this was the last Caius album. I really enjoy Hurricane and El Rodeo and, you know, Catamaran and stuff. I do really enjoy Caius. They're one of my favourite bands, and this is such a good album. It's quite good. Pick it up if you can. Next is a band that I wouldn't say I got into them recently. I've kind of enjoyed them. I've started enjoying them more than I did, because I started listening to them when they kind of came out, when they were sort of new, and I wasn't really keen on the way the vocalist wrote his lyrics. They seemed a bit lackluster almost, but I listened to them again and gained a new appreciation for them. And I went out and bought most of their albums just like that, because I started listening to them again and thought, actually, it's not that bad. You know, I do quite like them. So I placed a little order with Season of Mist, and I got the repress of Karakangren's debut, Lamendam, which is probably my favourite out of their first three. I really enjoy the Carriage Wheel Murder. That's my favourite album on this. That's my favourite track on this album. We've got a little sticker on the front saying, the reissue of Karakangren's highly sought after debut album with 3 previously unreleased bonus tracks. Recommended if you like Dimmu Borgir, Cradle of Filth, and Limbonic art. Well, I like those bands, so it's not too bad. And this is cool. I think the artwork is slightly different on the CD itself. We got this spider thing, which is pretty awesome. Oh dear, I dropped the insert, but I'll deal with that later. Next is another I'm going to probably get some shit for, but I love this band, and, you know, opinions are entirely subjective. I picked this up in a thrift store for really not a lot of money, so I was quite happy that I managed to find this. This is Razorblade Romance by him, their second album, released in 1999 and then released in Europe in 2000. I really like this album. It's a lot more sort of rocky than their later albums, which are a bit more kind of sad. But I really like this album. I like him. They're, again, one of my favourite bands. I mean, I have a lot of their albums, so I guess if I didn't like them, I wouldn't keep buying their stuff. This has some awesome tracks on it. You know, Your Sweet 666, Poison Girl, Right Here in My Arms, Wicked Game, the Chris Isaacs cover, Gone with Sin, Razorblade Kiss. It's just a good album, and, you know, it's good. It's a bit of an acquired taste. I mean, you won't, if you're the straight up staunch death metal guy, you will probably not like him so much, but I do, and so I've got quite a few of the albums. This is another recent purchase. Not my favourite album by these guys, but it's one I thought I might as well buy since I'm putting together their discography. This is Revelations of the Black Flame by 1349. It's a bit more, I don't want to say industrial. It's less of the sort of angry, furious black metal that 1349 is known for, but it's a cracking album. I really enjoy it. And of course, being a drummer myself, Frost is just amazing. You can always tell when it's something that Frost has played on, because it just hits you right in the face and doesn't stop, like, beating you to death until you're a twitching mess on the floor. So, yeah. Next, we have Where the Corpses Sing Forever by Karakangren. I told you I went out and bought a bunch of their stuff. I do really enjoy this album. The concept of it is really cool. The whole sort of disembodied voices from a World War II recording, and each song tells a story, supposedly. You know, Funerary Dirge of a Violinist was the first I heard from this album, and Bitter Tötet Mich is also really cool. And, you know, each album has their own concept, and I just think it's pretty cool. I like this one. Next up, we're going to start as we mean to go on with the second Karakangan release, Death Came Through a Phantom Ship. This is more of a concern about ghost stories around the Flying Dutchman, which is an interesting topic. I don't think that's really been touched in metal before, which is cool. Bloodstains on the Captain's Log, Van der Decken's Triumph, Departure Towards a Nautical Curse. This is just a cool album. Like, again, it's nothing new. So, you know, if you've listened to Karakangan before, you know what to expect. They've not really expanded much, but it's a good, solid album, and I really enjoy it. Next up, we have Cruelty and the Beast by Cradle of Filth. Not my favourite from them, but it was the last to feature Nick Barker on drums and Sarah Jezebel Deva on backing vocals. This could definitely benefit from a remaster. I'm gonna sound like a lot of people that this is not mixed well. This is the only real reason that this album suffers so much, is because it just sounds weird. Like the drums are too loud, the vocals are really quiet. The backing vocals sounds like Sarah is singing into a toilet. It could definitely benefit from a remaster, but you know, still, it's all right. Next up, we have Dusk in Her Embrace by Cradle of Filth, their second album, released on Music for Nations. I believe this was the last album to be... Oh no. No. This was their first album released on Music for Nations, which is the label that Paradise Lost was signed to back in the day, which is nice. I think it's an old UK label, but this is more symphonic, more gothic, more refined than their first offering. Humana Inspired to Nightmare, Heaven Torn Asunder, Funeral in Carpathia, Gothic Romance. You know, this album has a lot of stuff that they have in their set list still today. It's still raw. It's still got that edge to it, but it's a bit more polished, a little more accessible than perhaps they'd like it to be. And they also ditched the satanic imagery as well for this album. It's a bit more romantic and a bit more cold and gothy and stuff. But no, it's still a good album. It's still... Danny Filth's voice is still very much on point, I think. Next up, we got The Principle of Evil Made Flesh by Cradle of Filth, my all-time favourite Cradle of Filth album. This is the perfect blend of... It is the sound of UK black metal at the time. This was... you know, all the vocals, it sounds raw, it sounds evil, it sounds cold, it sounds very lo-fi, and it sounds extreme enough to definitely grab your attention. I mean, the opening track, The Principle of Evil Made Flesh, as soon as that starts and the first scream happens, it's just like, holy fuck, this is evil. And it's just really good. This is my favourite Cradle of Filth album. This is bar none, really. On the back, you can see them all looking so young, being all evil in corpse paint. This was released on Cacophonous Records in the UK. This label was quite big from in the early 90s. It distributed a lot of black metal to the UK and stuff, and we have a lot to thank them for. This is another that contains almost exclusively satanic imagery. You know, we got the big old Baphomet on the front cover, and a little tidbit of information you might not know. This album artwork was inspired in part by Bloody Kisses by Typo Negative, which I thought was pretty cool. Okay, next we got the last good Cradle of Filth album. This is Midian. This is their more commercially accessible album, I think. It retains the kind of evil that they had, but less so. Again, it's more polished, better production. This was also released on Music for Nations. My favourite track from this, personally, is not it's not Her Ghost in the Fog. It's actually Tortured Soul Asylum, the final track from this album. It's a bit long, but it's worth a listen. I mean, again, if this is something you haven't heard and something you want to get into, this is a good starting point. Although I'd prefer their older stuff, but again, this was the last good Cradle of Filth album, at least in my opinion, anyway. Alright, next up we have a self-titled album by Blink-182. I love Blink. Travis Barker is one of my favourite drummers. Is again one of the reasons I started playing, and this is a really good album. I can't really say much about it. It's pop punk, it's Blink, and they're good. Alright, we're coming to our last two albums, and what better way to end it on than two kind of special ones. This I bought off Discogs. This is the original press, the original UK press of Stormblast by Dimmu Borgir from '96, released on Cacophonous Records. I bought this off Discogs from a guy in Germany named David. Thank you very much for sending it to me. This is my favourite Dimmu Borgir album. The early Dimmu Borgir is the best, and this is the original first press. Apparently, the what makes it a first press is the back cover is different, apart from like the Matrix run out and everything, all the details. But the normal version of this has, I think, one of the band members on the back with holding a sword, but this is a waterfall on it. It kind of fits with the rest of the album, so, or the inside anyway, has the waterfall and all the pretty artwork. This is the last album that had lyrics entirely in Norwegian, and the last album where Stillinus did vocals before Shagrath took over. This is really good. I enjoy it. I like this a lot. This is another special one I bought from Season of Mist Records. This is my first purchase from Season of Mist, and I will buy a lot more from them because they're a really nice label to deal with and just buy things from. I think that's cool. This is the Satanic Death Noise from Beyond box set by Watain, the first 4 albums. This is a limited set. I'm not sure if it's limited. It could be. I'll check. But I pre-ordered this because as soon as I realized I heard it came out, I was like, I need to have it. This is housed in a kind of double jewel case thing, and it has Rabbit's Death Curse, Cassus Luciferi, Sworn to the Dark, and Lawless Darkness. In one convenient little package. Now each album has its own little bit with expanded linear notes and booklet and stuff. Each album is held in the double jewel case. This is a bit of a pain to fit on my shelf, but it works. So yeah, that's it for the first part of my CD collection. There will be a second part uploaded fairly soon because I've got quite a lot of free time at the moment. Till next time, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and enjoy.